3,700 Navy SEALs, the most elite fighting force on the planet, multiplied into an army of ghosts. Not a single 8-man squad conducting a precision raid. Not a platoon executing covert reconnaissance. An entire legion of the world's deadliest warriors, assembled to eliminate what intelligence agencies called the most dangerous drug convoy ever assembled. A mechanized procession of death stretching across 12 miles of Mexican highway, carrying enough fentanyl to kill every person in North America. The Gulf Cartel had spent 4 years preparing what they called La Caravana Final, the final caravan. 218 vehicles moving in military formation, armored personnel carriers mounting heavy machine guns, cargo trucks reinforced with steel plating thick enough to stop anti-tank rounds, technical vehicles bristling with surface-to-air missiles, and a command section equipped with communication systems that rivaled those of legitimate armies. But their most lethal innovation was operational security. Unlike previous convoys that moved with predictable patterns, this force operated with intelligence capabilities that had taken years to develop. Counter-surveillance teams monitored for aerial reconnaissance. Electronic warfare specialists jammed satellite communications. Even former CIA operatives, recruited through corruption and blackmail, provided insights into American surveillance methods. The convoy's cargo represented more than drugs. It was economic warfare in its purest form. Intelligence estimates placed the street value at $25 billion, enough narcotics to flood American markets for months. But the true weapon wasn't the drugs themselves. It was the fentanyl precursors that would allow the cartel to establish permanent manufacturing capabilities inside the United States, making interdiction impossible and addiction inevitable. The cartel believed they had created something undetectable. Their route changed constantly, following patterns generated by sophisticated algorithms. Communication was conducted through encrypted channels that utilized technology stolen from military contractors. Security was provided by over 800 heavily armed sicarios, many of them former Special Forces personnel from various nations who understood modern warfare. They had never faced 3,000 Navy SEALs who had been tracking their every move for 18 months. The operation to destroy the convoy had been designated Neptune's Trident, a reference to the three-pronged assault that would eliminate the convoy from land, sea, and air simultaneously. For over a year, SEAL teams had been infiltrating Mexico using methods so sophisticated that even American intelligence agencies weren't aware of their presence. They moved like smoke through terrain they had studied with scientific precision, establishing observation posts, weapons caches, and communication networks that operated beyond the reach of any surveillance system. The convoy's route had been predicted using analysis that combined satellite surveillance, communication intercepts, and behavioral modeling so sophisticated it bordered on supernatural. Every fuel stop, every maintenance halt, every security checkpoint had been mapped with precision that revealed patterns the convoy commanders never suspected were being studied. The SEALs knew where the convoy would be before the convoy commanders made their decisions. Intelligence indicated that the convoy was approaching a mountain pass that would concentrate their formation into a narrow corridor, perfect terrain for an ambush that would utilize every advantage SEAL teams possessed. The rocky terrain offered countless hiding positions. The narrow road would prevent the convoy from maneuvering to avoid concentrated fire. Most importantly, the remote location would ensure that no innocent civilians would be endangered when the elimination began. As darkness fell over the Mexican mountains, the convoy continued its advance with calculated confidence. Vehicle commanders monitored radio frequencies, seeing nothing but routine traffic. Electronic warfare specialists scanned for surveillance signals, detecting no unusual activity. Counter-surveillance teams reported clear skies and empty roads. The convoy's sophisticated security apparatus detected no threats, no unusual activity, no indication that death was already positioned along their route. None of them knew that SEAL teams had been in position for 3 days, having infiltrated the mountain pass using insertion methods that left no trace of their presence. Sniper teams occupied positions on ridgelines that offered commanding views of the entire route. Assault teams had taken cover behind rock formations that would allow them to engage the convoy from point-blank range. Demolition specialists had rigged the road itself with explosives that would trap the convoy in a kill zone where escape would be impossible. The plan was elegantly simple in concept, devastatingly complex in execution. The convoy would be allowed to enter the mountain pass, believing themselves secure in terrain they had scouted and approved. Then, at a predetermined signal, every SEAL team would strike simultaneously. Communications would be jammed, leadership eliminated, escape routes blocked. What followed would not be a battle. It would be systematic elimination by warriors who had perfected the art of invisible death. At exactly 0237 hours, the mountain pass erupted into coordinated violence as 3,000 Navy SEALs struck the convoy with precision that redefined special operations warfare. The surprise was so absolute that convoy security teams had no time to identify threats before they were eliminated by suppressed gunfire from positions they never suspected were occupied. The first kills came without sound. SEAL snipers, positioned on ridgelines hundreds of yards away, began systematically eliminating key personnel with suppressed rifles that whispered death across the mountain air. Convoy commanders who had been coordinating movements simply slumped forward in their seats. Radio operators monitoring communications frequencies went silent without warning. Security team leaders disappeared from their posts, leaving their subordinates leaderless and confused. The convoy's sophisticated communication network collapsed within minutes as every radio operator, every signal specialist, every commander with a headset was eliminated by precision shots that surviving fighters couldn't even hear. Electronic warfare vehicles designed to jam enemy communications found their own systems disabled by operators who died before understanding they were under attack. From concealed positions throughout the mountain pass, SEAL assault teams opened fire with weapons that had been specifically chosen for maximum effectiveness against armored targets. Their suppressed rifles fired armor-piercing rounds that punched through vehicle doors and bulletproof glass with ease. Each shot was placed with surgical precision, eliminating threats while preserving cargo that would provide valuable intelligence. One armored personnel carrier, its crew desperately trying to identify the source of incoming fire, was engaged by 3 separate SEAL teams, positioned at different elevations. Suppressed gunfire eliminated the gunner, driver, and commander in rapid succession, leaving the vehicle immobilized and silent. The remaining crew members, trapped inside steel that had become a coffin, found themselves facing opponents who had turned their protection into a prison. The convoy tried to implement defensive procedures designed for exactly this scenario, but every response was anticipated and countered by SEALs, who had studied convoy tactics with academic thoroughness. Smoke grenades designed to provide concealment were useless against thermal imaging systems that saw through any visual obstruction. Suppressing fire meant to force attackers to seek cover was ineffective against opponents who were already invisible and positioned beyond the range of convoy weapons. But the cartel fighters weren't helpless victims. These were experienced military personnel who understood convoy security, and they began implementing tactical responses based on training received from the world's elite military institutions. Heavy weapons teams attempted to establish fields of fire that would suppress SEAL positions. Security elements tried to break out of the kill zone using armored vehicles as mobile cover. Some tactics showed brief success. A technical vehicle mounting a heavy machine gun managed to force one SEAL team to change positions by maintaining sustained fire on their suspected location. But the victory was momentary. Within minutes, the gun position was eliminated by precision fire from a sniper team that had been tracking the vehicle since it entered the pass. The systematic elimination continued with mechanical efficiency that showcased the difference between criminal fighters and the world's most elite warriors. SEAL teams moved through the convoy with tactical coordination that had been perfected in the world's most dangerous battlefields. Their training in close-quarters combat was unmatched by any force on Earth, allowing them to advance under fire while maintaining accuracy that carved through enemy positions with surgical precision. Demolition specialists, working under covering fire from their teammates, began placing shaped charges on vehicles that contained the most valuable intelligence targets. These weren't designed to destroy the cargo. They were precisely calculated to eliminate threats while preserving evidence that would lead to the dismantling of cartel networks across multiple continents. The convoy's cargo trucks, carrying billions in narcotics, became priority targets for specialized teams trained in chemical warfare countermeasures. Rather than simply destroying the drugs, these operators used techniques that neutralized the substances at the molecular level, ensuring that no toxic residue would contaminate the environment while making the cargo completely worthless for any criminal purpose. Meanwhile, other SEAL teams began the systematic capture of high-value targets identified through months of intelligence gathering. Convoy commanders who had survived the initial assault found themselves facing opponents who could approach unseen, eliminate security with silent efficiency, and extract prisoners without alerting nearby guards. Each capture provided additional intelligence that would be used to plan future operations against cartel infrastructure. The psychological impact on surviving convoy personnel was devastating beyond description. These men had joined the operation because they believed their sophisticated security and overwhelming firepower made them invincible. Now they were trapped in a mountain pass with enemies they couldn't see, couldn't target, and couldn't fight using any conventional tactics. The few convoy vehicles that attempted to escape the kill zone discovered that every route had been anticipated and blocked. SEAL teams positioned at strategic choke points eliminated fleeing vehicles with precision that left burning wrecks scattered throughout the mountain passes. No one would escape to report what had happened. No intelligence would survive to help other criminal organizations prepare for similar operations. As the engagement entered its final phase, the mountain pass had been transformed into a graveyard of criminal ambition. The convoy that had believed itself unstoppable had been systematically dismantled by opponents who redefined the meaning of military precision. Every vehicle was either destroyed or captured. Every fighter was either eliminated or taken prisoner. Every gram of narcotics was either neutralized or secured as evidence. When the last shots echoed through the mountain pass and silence returned to the Mexican highlands, the transformation was absolute. Where hours before there had been the most sophisticated drug convoy in criminal history, now only controlled devastation remained. 218 vehicles, their cargo worth $25 billion, their security provided by 800 heavily armed fighters, had been systematically neutralized by opponents who moved like shadows and struck with supernatural precision. As specialized teams moved through the wreckage with methodical precision, the true scope of the intelligence gathering began. This wasn't just about destroying drugs. It was about capturing the organizational knowledge that would allow American authorities to dismantle cartel operations across multiple continents. Every document was photographed. Every electronic device was analyzed. Every communication system was penetrated to reveal networks that had taken decades to construct. Forensic specialists, working under armed guard provided by SEAL security teams, began the systematic analysis of convoy personnel, vehicles, and cargo that would provide insights into criminal operations worldwide. Financial records revealed corruption networks that reached into governments across Latin America. Communication logs showed coordination between criminal organizations on different continents. Personnel files identified individuals whose capture or elimination would cripple cartel operations in regions far from the Mexican mountains. The psychological impact rippled through criminal organizations worldwide within hours of the convoy's elimination. Communications intercepts revealed cartel leaders struggling to comprehend how their most secure operation had been detected and destroyed with such precision. Some accused rivals of betrayal. Others claimed supernatural intervention. None understood the simple truth. American intelligence capabilities made secrecy impossible, and SEAL operational skills made any target vulnerable to complete elimination. The economic impact was devastating. beyond calculation. Conservative estimates placed the destroyed cargo's value at $25 billion, but the true loss lay in the elimination of capabilities that could never be replaced. The convoy had represented not just drugs, but the expertise, connections, and infrastructure required to operate at industrial scale. Its elimination had created gaps in criminal operations that would take decades to rebuild. Recovery operations revealed the precision of SEAL tactics. Despite engaging over 200 targets in close-quarters combat, civilian casualties were zero, and environmental damage was minimal. The SEALs had eliminated a criminal army while preserving evidence and protecting innocent populations with surgical accuracy that demonstrated why they were considered the world's most elite fighting force. Mexican government cooperation with American anti-drug efforts reached unprecedented levels, as officials realized that neutrality was impossible when criminal organizations operated with military capabilities. The demonstration that cartel forces could be eliminated with such completeness made collaboration with American authorities the only viable strategy for national survival. The few cartel members who had escaped the convoy's elimination found themselves in a criminal landscape where large-scale operations were no longer survivable. Communication networks were compromised. Financial systems were exposed. Supply chains were disrupted. Even the knowledge required to coordinate such complex operations was eliminated, along with the personnel who possessed it. Other criminal organizations abandoned similar projects after analyzing what had happened in the Mexican mountains. Large-scale trafficking operations were canceled. Military advisors were dismissed. Investment in convoy-style operations stopped entirely as criminal leaders realized that such visible displays of capability made them targets for elimination by forces they couldn't comprehend or counter. Environmental assessments conducted over the following months revealed the surgical nature of the SEAL operation. Despite the complete elimination of a criminal army, damage to the natural environment was negligible. Wildlife populations showed no disruption. Water sources remained uncontaminated. The mountain ecosystem continued functioning normally within days of the operation. As investigators continued analyzing evidence recovered from the convoy, the full scope of what had been eliminated became clear. The operation hadn't just been about moving drugs, it had been a proof of concept for criminal organizations that were evolving toward military-style capabilities. Its elimination had prevented the spread of techniques and technologies that could have revolutionized criminal warfare worldwide. Intelligence gathered from the convoy's destruction led to operations against cartel infrastructure on 4 continents. Safe houses were raided. Financial networks were frozen. Supply chains were disrupted. The single operation in the Mexican mountains had triggered a cascade of law enforcement actions that would cripple organized crime for years. The international implications were immediate and far-reaching. Criminal organizations in Colombia, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and other regions took careful note of what had happened to the world's most sophisticated trafficking operation. The message was unmistakable. No security was sophisticated enough. No convoy was large enough. No criminal organization was powerful enough to survive when they attracted the attention of America's most elite warriors. 3,000 Navy SEALs had delivered a message written in silence and precision. There is no convoy too well protected, no security too sophisticated, no criminal organization beyond the reach of warriors who perfect their skills in the world's most dangerous places. The convoy that was supposed to be undetectable had been tracked with scientific accuracy. The force that was supposed to be invincible had been eliminated with surgical precision. The drug convoy was destroyed. The cartel's ambitions were buried in Mexican mountains. And the lesson was permanent. Those who wage war against American communities through industrial-scale criminal operations